Thank you for tuning in to another Chase Your Happiness video. If you did not have an opportunity to view the introductory video, I invite you to do so. It's not very long, but it just gives a little bit of a background as to the purpose and focus of the series of videos. But for today, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I wanted to open up a discussion with how to discover those areas of your life that need to be healed. I want to share, my process, 3 areas that I definitely put more of my energy in during that time, and just open up some questions, some discussion points. So when you start talking about healing and being broken, it's you're going through life, right? And life events happen, whether it's traumatic as sexual abuse or something like, maybe my mom said something about my hair when I was 9 years old and now I'm insecure about it. But those life events, they leave a crack in your heart. And, then life starts to be filtered through those cracks. For instance, I was sexually abused, so now I have a lot of trust issues. Or my behavior is aggressive because I'm angry inside. I feel like my life have dealt me a raw deal. Or I don't love myself. And so everything through life is being filtered through those cracks. Your decisions, your thought processes, your ways of doing things. Everything is being filtered through those cracks. So, and it can definitely prevent us from receiving all God has for us. And so it's when you heal those cracks, you heal your decision making, you heal your thought processes, your thinking, you heal your speech, you heal your temperament. So it's very important. But the most important part of it is to get to the root of whatever the behavior is. So how did I know what areas of my life needed to be healed? So it was in a time in my life where just, life starts to happen. I had gone through a breakup where there was a lot of betrayal. My mom was ill. She ended up passing. And I was tired of the patterns in my life. And the patterns were becoming, they were becoming more and more evident. Like, why do you keep dating the same guy dressed differently in a different car? It's the same guy. Or why is your speech so aggressive? See, when life started to happen to me, it started to put pressure on me, and the real me was coming out, and I didn't like it. And I did not want to stay that way. I knew that I would not have all that God has for me by staying that way. There's no way he could use me and I'm going off on people. It just couldn't happen. So I knew I was just desperate for a change. I was not experiencing the joy in my life that I knew God had for me. I was angry. I spoke very harshly. I hid behind honest, but honest and harsh is different. I just knew there had to be more out there for me to enjoy, more peace available to me. There had to be more love that I could feel. There just had to be more. And so I went out on a quest to get that more. I just was not satisfied with where I was. And the first area that I really put a lot of energy in first was self-awareness. And it was hard. You know what? My line sister sent me something. Posted something on Instagram that when I saw it, I was like, "Oh my God, this is perfect. I want to read this." And this just really just sums up why self-awareness is so important. It says, during World War II, Winston Churchill set up what he called the Statistical Office. The purpose of this organization was to ensure that he received the brutal facts, To protect this unit from the military bureaucracy that surrounded him, he placed the statistical office outside his general's chain of command. He was wise enough to recognize that it would be impossible for him to make good decisions without accurate and at times painful information. The same is true for you, but facing the painful truth requires courage. Designing and implementing a strategy for change is a waste of time until you have discovered and embraced the current reality. If you don't know where you are, it is impossible to get where you need to be. It sums it all up why self-awareness is so important. You got to know the truth about you. Not just the you when everything's great, but even the you when there's some pressure. The you that sometimes you're not so proud of. And with discovering everything about us, we start to recognize patterns in our life. Like I said about the easiest example is just a relationship. Why do I continuously attract men who refuses to commit to me? Or a pattern of behavior. Why do I lose myself when I get into a relationship? Why do I run after relationships? Why am I so angry? I don't love myself that much, and my behavior shows it. I low-key judge people. Like, I do. I low-key judge people. And becoming aware of those behaviors or those thoughts or even thought processes, I became aware, like, oh, you think negative a lot. Like, you have a lot of negative thoughts. Start thinking about what you're thinking about. It was so instrumental because I had to know what the reality of me was. So it definitely unveiled a lot of areas for healing and some areas of growth too. You know, I procrastinate a lot. If I'm not honest about the area of growth, it's never going to change because I haven't brought it to the light. So how did I go through this process of self-awareness? I started spending a lot of quiet time, a lot of still time, a lot of time alone, just reflecting and thinking and journaling big time, a lot of praying, even learning, to really just enjoy myself, me, myself, and I, and getting to know me. While I was reflecting and just being in my thoughts, sometimes, there were memories that came up that weren't so pleasant, and or thoughts, or mostly memories that came up with what somebody did or whatever, or a painful time. And instead of just skipping through it, I sat in whatever emotion it brought. And those were areas that I would kind of take note of and kind of journal and ask God, like, is this an area that I need to be healed? Because it's still bringing back some painful or negative emotions. I also started reflecting on some consistent feedback that I had received from people. And it could be, friends, sisters, my managers at work. It could be anything, anyone. Remember, I'm looking for the truth about me, so I'm looking for patterns. So what is some consistent feedback that I've seen? And even when it is, even when it's your haters, even what they're saying might have some truth to it. Just because they're a hater doesn't mean what they're saying is not true. But I was looking, it didn't matter if you were a hater. It didn't matter because I was looking for my truth. Who am I? And I also started actually going out asking, my trusted few, like asking their thought processes and their feedback. If it was something that, a behavior, I would ask them, like, hey, what did you think about when I said this? Well, yeah, I thought it was rude. What about when I said this to whomever? Yeah, I thought that was a bit harsh. And so it started to pinpoint working examples of areas that I did not want to stay the same in. The most important aspect of self-awareness, I think, for me was I asked God to take the blinders off of my eyes. And, you know, when we start talking about looking in the mirror and looking ourselves, we tend to have on very thick blinders when it comes to us and very thin ones when it comes to other people. And so I asked God to take the blinders off. Let me see me for me. And of course, he's a gentleman. He's a kind God, so he didn't just snatch him off. I probably would have passed out for just being overwhelmed at who I really was. But he just started to soften them. Little by little, started softening them and started really showing me who I was. And when he did that, I would ask him, you know, please show me the root of that behavior. Where does this come from? And so that brings about the second area that I definitely gave more energy to is strengthening my relationship with God. I realized pretty soon that a lot of this behavior I hadn't been able to change in this time. This was about 10 years ago. And I hadn't been able to change. So me changing myself was not probable. And so I knew I needed to partner with God. And I needed to get to know my partner better. True healing comes from the inside out, and he was going to have to do the inside. So I needed to get to know my partner. I needed to build my relationship with him. And that can look like a lot of things. You know, God will come and work behind the scenes with you when you partner with him. And that can look like a lot of things, is what I meant. Him working behind the scenes. It could be him sending that trusted few that you're able to have those really deep, those conversations about, you know, some of your behavior, or get their feedback, or getting some encouragement from them. Softening your heart to forgive. One of the most important aspects of building my relationship with God for me was figuring out what God, or finding out what God thought about me. Sometimes what we think about ourselves, and, you know, us knowing some of the things that we've done, we don't always have some of the most positive outlooks on ourselves. Some of our truths are, I don't love myself. But to know what God feels about you, how he thinks about you, is so encouraging. To know that no matter what I've done, he's never had one bad thought about me. So even if I'm not at the point of loving myself, I can hold on to his love. You know, so it's very important to know what God feels about you. And you meet a new God. Your relationship with him, you're introduced to a completely new God that you didn't know before the process, I should say. So how did I do this? Now, building your relationship with God is personal. Everyone has their own personal, or should have their own personal relationship with him. And all I can say is all I am going to share is the process that I used, the path that God had for me. But what I will say that is universal is God said, if you seek me, you shall find me. So I'm giving examples of what seeking him looked like for me. For me, it looked like even more quiet time. Just a lot of praying, a lot of talking to God, just a whole lot of journaling. I'm going to have a separate video completely on journaling because it was so instrumental for me. But being more consistent at church, at Bible study, at conferences, just where the word was being preached, I was seeking God's face. God started to send people to pour into my life, to tell some honest truths about me. I would listen to praise and worship music, especially during those times where I was just down. And I needed to hear, I needed to know that God was still there. You know, I needed him in my ears. I just did a lot of talking to God. And throughout both of those, the self-awareness and the building my relationship with God, I had to commit to the process. That's the last action item. I truly had to commit to the process. And I don't want to simplify it, because committing to the process actually took me a couple of years. Because, you know, I'm prideful, and I was prideful, and I had an really independent spirit, so I thought I could do it on my own. And I kept trying and failing and trying and failing. And so finally I just had to commit to the process. And, you know, it definitely is a process. Every new season in your life, you will have to discover a new you and who you are in that season. Because if you try to have the old you in a new season, it's not going to work out very well. You know, I'm a mother now. If I tried to live my life like I did before I was a mother, my kids would probably not be very well taken care of. So a new season brings a new you, and it's time to get to know that person again, and get to know the what God has for you in that season. So committing to the process, change is hard, just period. And but I knew I did not want to stay the same. I guess God used my desperation, because I was desperate. I didn't want to stay the same. And so when I decided that no matter how painful the memories were, no matter how who I had to forgive, no matter how deep I had to go to get to this root of all of this angry behavior, I was going to do it, because I didn't want to stay the same. I remember when I was working out with Reggie C Fitness. He is an awesome trainer. And so we would eat really clean. We would, you know, work really hard inside of his gym, and then on our own. And then we would weigh in. And I would look at that scale on some weeks, and I would just be in awe, like, this is not reflective of my work. And I would have an immediate attitude. And I mean an attitude the entire class. And he would always say, Tangela, you need to trust the process. Trust the process. And to trust the process, you have to truly commit to the process, so that when it doesn't feel good, on those days that you are discouraged, you do feel some shame or some hurt or some guilt, that you're able to hold on, because you're holding on to the process. You don't want to be the same next year. So those areas, you know, that I gave more energy to, the self-awareness, the relationship with God, and truly committing to the process, it really unveiled and really helped me discover some areas that truly needed to be healed in my life. If you guys recall, I said in the introductory video, my focus is just to bring up topics that's going to bring about conversation. I don't have all the answers. I'm on the journey myself, so I don't have all the answers. I just want to bring up just topics of conversation. And sometimes those conversations will be, you know, with your girlfriends, your sisters, your mom, and sometimes they're going to be just internal conversations that you need to have with yourself. And so today I just want to leave you with a couple of questions. And these questions are just for you to reflect on, for you to really meditate on and reflect on, and really pray about this coming week. For some awareness. And the first question I would say is, do you see patterns in your life? When you really sit back and you really think about some of the relationships that you have, romantic and friends, some of your behaviors, some of your thought processes, and the way that you think, do you see patterns of behavior? I mentioned before, are you dating the same guy over and over again? and I just keep using that example just because it's the easiest one. But it could be, do you keep the same friendships that have no growth in them? Do you keep them around? But I just really want you to think about that. Number 2, do you know the current you? And not the you when everything is great, but the you. Do you know an outdated version of yourself? Do you know the good, bad, and ugly? The last question is, do you prioritize quiet time? And I said prioritize because, and not do you participate in quiet time currently, but do you prioritize it? Because when I had Chase in Paisley, for the first couple months, I didn't get quiet time in because my head was spinning. But because I prioritized it, it did find its way back into my daily routine because I prioritize it. So even if it's because, I could hear, oh, I'm really, really busy. Even, if you can't get it in now, if you prioritize it and truly pray about it, it will find its way into your life. So like I said, I just want you to take these questions and really, really reflect on them. Really be honest and admit some raw truths if necessary. Feel free to comment in the comment section on any, what they say, aha moments. Feel free. I would love to hear from you. But I thank you for tuning in. I hope this opened up a new realm of discussion possibilities. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Before you log out, please do me a favor and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye.